Hi everyone. Welcome back to the Unite Pieces channel, and today we will be talking about an action, crime, thriller movie called The Mechanic. Make sure you watch this video all the way through, for a better experience. The movie opens with a motorcade being shown, which turns out to be none other than the guards paid to protect the boss of the biggest drug cartel there. The cartel boss himself then swims in his private pool. While having fun swimming, the cartel boss sees a luxury watch at the bottom of the pool, so he swims down. However, when at the bottom of the pool suddenly someone pulls and strangles him, then the person moves the cartel boss's hand to convince the guard that his boss is fine. After being sure the cartel boss was killed, the person rushed to disguise himself as a waiter, and the man was Arthur Bishop, a professional assassin. Bishop left the place, jumped into the estuary, and easily left the scene without being spotted, then left by boat to return to his home. After arriving, we can see the photos displayed behind the walls of his house, revealing that Arthur Bishop had prepared in great detail the plan to kill this drug cartel boss. Arthur Bishop was a perfectionist killer who, when he went into action, would arrange for all of his kills to look like accidents. Bishop also upheld the pawnbroker's principle of solving problems without problems, and they named the job after the mechanic. The next day Bishop confirmed his work by looking at a news story on the internet, which informed him that a drug cartel boss had died from drowning in his private swimming pool. After that Bishop went to see his friend Harry at a cafe, which turned out to be Harry who had told Bishop to kill the cartel boss. Harry himself is a former Nazi soldier, who is now a distributor of requests from clients to hitmen. After getting money from Harry, Bishop went to a bar and enjoyed the money. A few days later, Bishop opened the website of his company, which was engaged in assassination services. Bishop was dumbfounded when he saw Harry's photo displayed as the next assassination target. Because of this, Bishop met Dean, who was one of the top mechanics, who often hired Bishop. After they met, Dean said that Harry had disturbed other mechanics, and betrayed the company, where Harry had killed 5 members of the mechanics, one of whom was Sebastian, who Bishop himself knew. Therefore the company targeted Harry for the next mission. Dean himself offered Bishop to kill Harry, so that his death would be less painful, and if Bishop refused, then another assassin would hunt Harry, and surely it would make Harry suffer greatly. At night, Bishop contacted Harry, saying that Dean's men had surrounded his house. Bishop then leads Harry from the phone, so that Harry goes to the car park. After arriving at the car park, Harry sees that his car has been vandalized, then suddenly Bishop comes from the dark. Harry now realizes that he has fallen into a trap, and that the vandalized car is to create evidence that Harry died from robbery. Harry, who knows that, does not resist at all, because Harry would rather die at the hands of his own best friend, than die at the hands of another H. Finally, Bishop shoots Harry right in the heart. At Harry's funeral, his son Stephen is seen, meeting with Bishop. Steve revealed that he planned to kill all the car robbers in his city, because Steve thought his father's death was due to robbery, even though the culprit was in front of him at that time. At night, Steve stayed in the car in a quiet place, to lure the car robbers to come. Soon one of the car robbers came to threaten him, so that made Steve beat the robber, and almost killed him, but Bishop appeared and prevented him. Bishop said that if he did the old-fashioned way like that, it would only make Steve hunted in the future. The next day, Bishop, who felt sorry, then contacted Steve, and offered him to stay with him, because now Steve was alone. To prevent Steve from being arrogant and killing people carelessly, Bishop also taught Steve how to become a professional killer. After that Bishop went on duty, but this time Bishop invited Steve to get involved in his duties. The task this time was to kill another assassin, where the assassin was tall and had above average skills, but there were 2 weaknesses that he had, namely that the assassin really liked dogs and young men, because the hitman turned out to be gay. Bishop also told Steve to approach him constantly while carrying a puppy in a cafe. After the approach, Steve finally succeeded. Then Bishop also planned for Steve to take the killer to a bar, and put poison in his drink, so that the murder would look neat and no one would suspect it. After Steve arrived at the bar, and Steve had the opportunity to kill the hitman with poison, but Steve chose to use his own way. The 2 of them then went to the room where the hitman wanted to sodomize Steve. Suddenly, Steve strangled the man with his belt, but because the man was not an ordinary person, the assassin beat Steve easily. But because of the training of the Bishop, Steve finally quickly killed the assassin, by stabbing his chest with an iron. Although the mission was successful, it was in a very chaotic way. The scene moves to the Bishop, who is taking a package from Dean, which contains documents on the bishop's next target. And the bishop's next target is a false prophet, with the protection of his followers who are quite large. Bishop plans to kill the prophet by mixing adrenaline before the doctor gives him vitamins, because if the two substances are fused, the false prophet will be poisoned and killed as if the doctor's mistake. After planning, they went to Chicago, Illinois, where the false prophet was. After monitoring the false prophet for days, they were ready to launch their plan. They went behind the wall and waited for the false prophet alone. However, it turned out that the false prophet was addicted to a type of drug that would prevent the effects of adrenaline from working, which Bishop planned to inject. Therefore, they had to change the plan. After the false prophet was alone, Bishop and Steve then entered the room and immediately attached a camera tube to the false prophet's throat while covering his nose, in order to make him choke to death. After the task was completed, they were about to escape, but Bishop accidentally nudged the bolt nut, making it roll out. The false prophet's aide who saw him immediately became suspicious and checked behind the glass. Steve, who was careless, shot the false prophet's aide, making all the guards there aware of them, and eventually a shootout broke out between them. Fortunately, Bishop and Steve managed to escape after descending the building through the window. Then they mingled and separated first so that no one would suspect them. When Bishop was at the airport waiting for Steve, Bishop suddenly saw Sebastian, who was rumored to have died due to Harry's betrayal. Bishop immediately followed him, then interrogated Sebastian. Sebastian said that his teammates died because Sebastian himself finished him off, on Dean's orders. Dean himself told Sebastian to disappear and fake his death, and blamed Harry as the culprit. Dean himself did that because there was someone who was willing to pay many times over to kill Harry. Suddenly, Sebastian immediately attacked Bishop, and a fight broke out between them. Which in the end Sebastian died because Bishop threw him out of the bus and made Sebastian run over by a car. After that incident, Bishop began to target Dean. Dean, who already knew Sebastian was dead because of Bishop, immediately prepared himself to wait for his arrival. Dean sent all his men to hunt down Bishop. When Bishop was at the dock, Bishop was suddenly attacked by Dean's men, but Bishop managed to finish them off easily. Bishop then contacted Steve, who was at home, where Steve was surrounded by Dean's men. Bishop then told Steve that under his sofa there was a gun. Steve, who happened to be sitting there, immediately took it and managed to shoot Dean's men very quickly. After that, Bishop and Steve met and they prepared weapons to hunt Dean. However, Steve accidentally found his father's gun in Bishop's weaponry. Then Steve realized that it was Bishop who had killed his father. While on the road, Steve asked if Bishop really killed his father. Bishop, who knew that Steve had found out first, finally admitted it, but Steve seemed not to care about things that had long passed. They found Dean's aide at his house, then beat him and threatened, if Dean's aide did not want to tell Dean's whereabouts, then Bishop would cut off his son's hand. By force, Dean's aide finally told Dean's whereabouts. After knowing Dean's whereabouts, Bishop also hijacked Dean's phone line, which made it look as if he was already in the building. Dean, who was afraid, immediately asked all his guards to escort Dean out of the building, and some were looking for Bishop in the building. But it turns out that Bishop himself is outside the building, and is preparing to attack Dean's motorcade. Bishop crashed his car into one of the cars belonging to Dean's troops. Then Bishop moved to a garbage truck, while Steve hit the car from the front with the big car he hijacked. It didn't take long for the car Dean was driving to be hit by the garbage truck driven by Bishop. Dean, who was badly injured, tried to get out, but Steve and Bishop fired bullets at him with a very angry feeling. After the mission was successful, they stopped by the nearest gas station. Steve here intended to kill Bishop by pouring fuel on his car, after which Steve pretended to buy cigarettes at the convenience store, but soon Steve fired at the car, which made the car explode. After that, Steve came to Bishop's house and played music, and then left using Bishop's car that was there. On the way, Steve found a paper that said, "Steve, if you read this, you die." Immediately the car exploded with Steve inside laughing. Meanwhile, in the gas station CCTV at that time, it can be seen that before the explosion Bishop first got out of the car and finally he survived, and the movie end. So, what do you think about this movie? Maybe you can write it in the comments column, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.